Hi, welcome back. This is part two. Remember what we had dealt with previously was that we wanted to understand to what extent do constitutional provisions, electoral processes, and judicial decisions influence political outcomes and shape political behavior in South Africa. And as I promised that this second take will focus on the constitutional provisions, the electoral processes, and the judicial decisions. So now with our focus firstly being on how does the South African Constitution, with its emphasis on human rights, equality, and the rule of law, influence governance and political behavior. So this is the Constitution of South Africa. And this one is where there are basic provisions of the Constitution as amended in 1996, right? So this is what we use whenever we do human rights advocacy in schools. So you've come to the right person because I'm a trained human rights champion with the South African Human Rights Commission. So this field of scope, I will encompass both my understanding in political science and international relations, as well as my practical experience as a human rights champion. So now the South African Constitution, adopted in 1996, is widely regarded as one of the most progressive in the world, with a strong emphasis on human rights, equality, and the rule of law. These principles are enshrined in the Bill of Rights and other provisions, and they play a pivotal role in shaping governance and political behavior in South Africa. Now let's look at the how aspect. The first one that I will focus on is how they influence governance. The Constitution serves as the supreme law of the country, providing a framework for governance that ensures accountability, transparency, and the protection of citizens' rights. Its influence on governance is evident in the following ways. Firstly, through the separation of powers. The Constitution establishes a clear separation of power among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, preventing the concentration of power and promoting checks and balances. This structure ensures that no single branch can dominate, fostering a system of accountability and mutual oversight. We look at human rights and equality. The Bill of Rights guarantees fundamental rights such as equality, dignity, freedom of expression, and access to justice. These provisions compel the government to prioritize policies that promote social justice and redress historical inequalities. For example, the affirmative action and Black economic empowerment policies are rooted in the constitutional mandate to address apartheid-era injustices. Now, we look at the rule of law. The Constitution requires that all laws and government actions comply with its provisions, ensuring that governance is conducted within a legal framework. This principle has been instrumental in holding public officials accountable, as seen in cases where courts have ruled against executive overreach or corruption. We have independent institutions. Chapter 9 institutions such as the Public Protector, the Human Rights Commission, and the Electoral Commission are established by the Constitution to safeguard democracy and protect citizens' rights. These institutions play a critical role in monitoring government performance and ensuring adherence to constitutional principles. Now we look at influence on political behavior. So what the Constitution does, right, is that it shapes the behavior of political actors, institutions, and citizens by setting standards for ethical conduct, inclusivity, and democratic participation. Its impact on political behavior includes political accountability. The Constitution mandates transparency, accountability in governance, influencing how political leaders and parties conduct themselves. An example that we can make is the requirement for regular, free and fair elections, which encourage political parties to remain responsive to the needs of the electorate. We have promotion of inclusivity, where the Constitution plays a role in equality or emphasizing equality and non-discrimination by fostering a political culture that values diversity and inclusivity. Also, political parties and leaders are compelled to adopt policies and rhetoric that reflect these values, promoting social cohesion and reducing marginalization. So, judicial oversight and political behavior. The judiciary, particularly the Constitutional Court, plays a critical role in interpreting the Constitution and ensuring that political actions align with its principles. Now, landmark rulings such as those addressing corruption or electoral disputes have reinforced the importance of ethical behavior and adherence to the rule of law among political actors. We look also at citizen empowerment. The Constitution empowers citizens to hold the government accountable through mechanisms such as public participation, access to information, and the right to protest. This has led to a more politically engaged citizenry, with civil society organizations and activists using constitutional provisions to advocate for change and challenge injustices. Now, importantly, we also look at the challenges and limitations. While the Constitution has significantly influenced governance and political behavior, its implementation faces challenges. One, inequality and poverty. So despite the constitutional guarantees that we have as enshrined in this Constitution, amended in 1996, socioeconomic inequalities persist, undermining the full realization of rights such as access to education, healthcare, and housing. As you have, I think, noted with the ongoing cases and situations surrounding the national health insurance, and as you've seen previously with the protests, particularly the 2016 Fees Must Fall protest, which focused primarily on access to education. So these are challenges that we experience on a day-to-day basis. And as you have noted that there are some parents who have enrolled, or rather applied for their children to be enrolled in schools nearby and have been otherwise declined, or their kids have not been placed in those institutions of learning. So it is an ongoing debate around access to education, healthcare, and housing. So we also have corruption and weak enforcement, where corruption within government institutions sometimes undermines the rule of law and accountability, highlighting gaps between constitutional ideals and practice. I think there have been many cases that have been mushrooming in South Africa, particularly with regards to corruption cases. So we also have political polarization. While the Constitution promotes inclusivity, political behavior is sometimes marked by divisive rhetoric and factionalism, particularly within dominant political parties. Now, that was our focus in as far as the Constitution is involved. So now we look at the extent to which the South African electoral systems, including proportional representation and the role of independent electoral commission, impact political representation and voter behavior. It is important